You're listening to the FTGU Media Show. I am your host, Laura, and today I'm just going to get right into it because we have YouTube star sensation and dear friend of mine from Clubhouse, Jaime. Jaime, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
I said Clubhouse because a couple of my guests now have been from Clubhouse as well. And I just think what an incredible way that we have all had the opportunity to build community and meet each other. I would have probably never met you in any other circumstance because you're down in Texas and I'm up here in Canada, and we found each other on Clubhouse, and I've heard you in so many rooms and you just have such incredible things to say. And I just love your spirit and your personality and of course what you've done with social media. So again, thanks so much.
I don't know how long we're going to go, but it needs to go longer. It needs to go longer. So I love this. So stop, but keep going. I love it.
Well, Jaime, I got to tell you, I have nothing scheduled for the rest of the day. This is it. So we could take this into midnight here if need be.
If we need to take it on the road, I'm down.
It's a pleasure.
Awesome. And I just know you're going to bring the goods today. And like I said, I want to get straight into it. I just want to get a sense of when did you start your YouTube channel?
Yeah.
And why did you start producing content?
Oh, so it was mostly to gain my time back. I didn't really backing up for a second. So I started the YouTube channel intentionally in 2018. So it was August of 2018. And I wanted a more efficient way of communicating with my clients, so my buyers and sellers, because I was finding myself repeating myself over and over and over again. So having a conversation with the home buyer, I remember his name, George. So having a conversation with George and going through the entire offer that we were going to present, then having the exact same conversation with Maria, which is his wife. So it was that duplication of efforts, which at that time was 2.5 hours. I'm pretty long-winded, and so are they, where I just kept thinking there has to be a better way. So I recorded a video moving forward on how to communicate with them a little bit better, where now I can use YouTube to present the same information, actually in more detail, because I could share my screen and provide value to them that way, where they didn't have to just focus on the phone or us scheduled time to meet. So it was that opportunity that as soon as I realized, well, what if I can, clearly this is working with George and Maria, how can I amplify this to bring me more Georges and bring me more Maria? So that's how it all started from the YouTube perspective.
I think that's so interesting. Obviously, you're a real estate agent. I'm a real estate agent. We had the same kind of thinking on our side in around the same time in 2018, where the owner of the company I work for, REC Canada, we were talking about, we're just having the same conversations again and again and again. It was really getting quite exhausting to go from one call to the next, but saying the same thing. And it kind of took the fun out of the job a little bit when you could almost guess what people were going to ask. And you almost didn't even need them to ask the questions. Like, let me just go over the 10 things that I know you're going to need to know. And it kind of came robotic. And so we had the same thinking, like, let's start a podcast. So we started a podcast show. It was audio only at the start with the intention of educating, not necessarily new people. This wasn't about getting new people into our database. It really was about educating the ones we had so that when it came time for that transaction, they already had that education. They already had the knowledge, making the sale a lot faster and easier. What we didn't realize at the time, though, was that by recording the podcast and making it a video recording so we could, put videos just like you up on YouTube, we could actually send database emails to our clients and give them the link to the YouTube video so that they could watch that and would essentially give them everything that they would need to know, whether they're buying, selling, or investing in different asset classes as well. So it was a huge advantage to us. Of course, in doing so, we went deep with our clients. They trusted us. They came educated. It made everything easier. But then what also started happening was that snowball effect, right? You put up one video, you don't see too many views. You have kind of your clients who dabble in it. But then all of a sudden you start seeing all these new people coming along. Did you anticipate the type of growth that you have? Because you have 20,000 followers or over 20,000 followers on your YouTube page, subscribers. Did you kind of was that the goal, like to be this YouTube star, or were you it just kind of happened naturally for you?
No, so that wasn't the goal at all. So really that was a realization that I had with the Georgia Maria. And I made, it was that realization that then prompted me to make another video, but this time to make it public. So when I made the public, it was just more of a proof of concept. So the channel that you're referencing is where I speak mostly to real estate agents. And I made a video solely just to help real estate agents because there's a little software that was being introduced into my local MLS where I made a video just giving a little tutorial on some success that I had with the software. And I uploaded it on Sunday, like around in the evening, around 6 p.m. or so. The very next day, Monday morning, I have an email in my inbox from the CEO of the software. So that's where it really beyond crystallized it for me where, hey, there's something here. I don't know what it is. I certainly didn't. I've seen YouTubers, I grew up in that age, if you will, and where I constantly watch YouTube, but I didn't know anything from affiliates, from YouTube AdSense, from the way that you could leverage it in its full form. But having that initial exposure and having that initial instant win, not everyone has those instant wins and validation, where it really forced me to look into this a little bit further and start making more and more content. So I had no intention outside of saving time that's what I thought that this was the ultimate tool. I thought I had the perfect hack in terms of saving time, but seeing that instant gratification, it didn't come in the form of getting 1 million views or having a viral video. It just came from that relationship from who's still a really good friend now, who happened to be the former #1 Keller Williams agent in the world, who founded that software, reached out to me, and we're pretty good friends at this point. It just crystallized the power of YouTube. And I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Well, I think you did. I think it's so fascinating, right? You go into something with kind of certain expectations and something else completely comes of it. You just never know. And I think really overall, it doesn't have to be YouTube, but producing content as a whole opens doors for people, not necessarily the doors that you think. Sometimes it takes you on odd tangents. New business opportunities come out of it. You meet new people, like how we met, for example. And just by meeting those new people, again, like your net worth is determined by your network, right? And so I think this proves it for you for sure. When I first started thinking about producing content for myself, I definitely had that moment of like, okay, I know I want to do something. There's something in my gut that really tells me I should be doing something, but I'm a little scared. I'm a little nervous. I don't know what to say. Will people like what I have to say? Will they like how I look? I don't know about the camera. I've never been on a camera before. There's all these thoughts that go through your mind. And so I started with just writing a blog. That was the written word, and putting that out for the world to see was scary enough. And I say the world because let's be honest, I think people think a little too hard at it at first. They think, well, I'm going to post something and I can get all these views and all these people are going to see me. In reality, it doesn't necessarily work that way for most people. And so for me, it was just my friends and family that were probably really reading what I had to write because they were interested in me. But that gave me a lot of fear. How was your experience when you started producing content? Did you have those obstacles or any fears that you had to overcome? And how did you?
Oh, yeah. No, it's a great question. So a lot of it has to do with limiting beliefs. And we had this conversation with my real estate team just this morning where I challenged 2 agents to start their YouTube channel. And I made it incredibly, I incentivized them to it. I'm not going to say I bully them. I incentivized them to it.
Jaime, did you bully your staff?
I cannot say that. And if the Texas Workforce Commission reaches out to you, you didn't hear that from me.
I didn't hear it. Your secret's safe with me.
Thank you. No. So what we did was, so I offered my thumbnail designer. I offered my editor and all that stuff to, incentivize them because sometimes we have to get out of our heads. But to answer your question directly, yes, I do have those limiting beliefs, what I call limiting beliefs, still to today. And sometimes in the comments, you're going to get less than generous people that are going to say your noise, the way that you sound is awful. Your hair is parted the wrong way. I don't like your birthmark right on your, whatever it happens to be, that is going to happen. So yes, I'm not going to pretend that you're not going to get that type of content. No, you're going to get 100 thumbs up, and there's always going to be that one thumb down. But that's something that as soon as I accepted that things were going to happen regardless, that gave me the fortitude, or I guess more the courage to make more and more videos. So for me, how I kind of eased my way into it was I didn't show my face on screen until about video 20 or so. So somewhere around there. So I just shared my screen, but I didn't share my face because I felt that as long as people could just hear me and hear the content, hear my message, and I wasn't full of BS, I thought that I could win some people over. And then I started getting that courage of some positive comments. Hey, this really helped. Hey, this did this for me. Till I started getting those feedback, that type of feedback, that's when I started, had the courage of showing my face. And another conversation that I had with a very prominent YouTuber at that time was, you show up this way anyway. The only difference is you show up on a one-to-one basis with your clients, whether you're trying to take a listing, where you're doing a buyer presentation. The only difference is now you get the benefit of showing up to a camera, which is not going to judge you. And you get to make one video or show up to your camera, which could potentially lead you to 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people. And if you don't like the comment, you just delete it and move on.
I think where most people kind of, they get stuck in that they're thinking, okay, I want to produce my first video, so it's got to be really, really, really good. And I'm going to take 10 days to edit it and refilm it and do all these things to it to make it so it's the perfect video. And I always, say to people who come to us and say, well, I can't get past it. I'm like, okay, first and foremost, the perfect video to you might not be the perfect video to someone else, right? That's subjective. So let's put that aside for now. The second thing is I try to encourage people that the key is in the repetition. The key is into getting those reps in, making the mistakes, making all the mistakes on camera and doing whatever it is that you hate when you're watching it back and posting it anyways. By posting it anyways, you're going to get some feedback. Most of it's going to be good. Again, let's be honest, unless you already have a huge following, the majority of people, they know you, they love you, they care about you. They're going to give you positive feedback. They're going to give you constructive feedback, or they're going to say nothing at all. And that's all okay. The key is to get up and do it again. And if you take too much time in the editing and in the reshooting, you're not going to be able to get those reps in. You're too worried about the one, and really it's about doing them over and over again. And obviously that's what you've done, because you have so many videos on here. And I think my guess is that you've learned a lot along the way. We're always testing things. So let's try and put something up on Instagram. Oh, that didn't work on Instagram. Let's try and put it up on LinkedIn. Wow, it did incredibly well on LinkedIn. Sometimes content is specific to the channel or the social media outlet. Sometimes you posted at the wrong time. Sometimes people just didn't like you that day for whatever reason. So you got to get those tests in. In your experience, like what kind of topics get the most traction for you or the most engagement?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer this from my what I call my B2C channel. So from the real estate for buyers and sellers channel. So I have various channels. I call those phantom channels, where I don't ever make an appearance because I recognize the power of YouTube to where there's some other financial opportunities from that world. But I'll speak directly from what's going to most likely help your audience from the real estate agent perspective and how to generate leads. Anytime you're talking about a city in terms of giving people a lay of the land, whether that's a neighborhood, a city, a region, a state, that's going to attract a lot of buyers. That's going to attract a lot of people that are interested in understanding what does it mean to live in Texas, or more specifically in Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, if I'm coming from California? What are the differences? So just to help some viewers along to really crystallize that type of video, property taxes are going to be considerably different. Texas has higher property taxes than California, except when it comes to the income tax here, specifically to United States. California, they have state income tax, and Texas does not. So there's a big migration from a state to another state. So understanding that from a very consumer focus, or thinking about the consumer, what type of information would somebody that's moving from California need to know to make it a seamless experience to move to Texas. So that's going to attract your buyers. So anytime you talk about the lay of the land, what the cost of living, the pros and cons of the area, so a lot of information that you can share, especially the negative. I don't want to go too much negative because then you run into some housing issues. But if you highlight the downsides of whatever, you're going to get the most amount of clicks, the engagement, because people are gravitate towards that train wreck more than the, hey, when everything went perfect. So if you can provide, I'm not saying provide negative, make your channel all negative, but providing the opposite of what the salesman typically shares with you, all of the rosy stuff, all the reasons to provide that counterpoint and see how much engagement you're going to get, regardless of the type of content that you produce.
I mean, that makes so much sense. And yet so few of us actually do that, right? And I think in that respect, you probably build a lot more trust with your audience by showing the good and the bad. And so I think that's genius. I was talking with my team yesterday. We were, again, looking through your YouTube channel, the one where you're speaking to other agents. And it does seem like the way you film it and the thumbnails that you include are all sort of the same theme. Tell me a little bit about how you discovered that that's kind of like the perfect way to shoot your content and the perfect type of thumbnail to put on. Because again, people are like, I don't know how to create a thumbnail. What kind of thumbnail? Like, is there something to that? Have you done the analytics on that?
Oh, 100%. So I have one of my business partners is Javier Vidania, and he's a top 10 channel as a realtor plus YouTuber. So he's got about 120,000 subscribers. And he speaks directly to buyers and sellers. So he and I are in business together, and he and I are constantly going back and forth and tweaking different elements in our thumbnails, in our titles. So specifically speaking of, how the thumbnails came to fruition, YouTube goes through seasons. Sometimes hey, not showing your face is what's popping. Sometimes it's just having one word on the thumbnail is what's trending. So it's a lot of going back to the well and digging into your analytics along with the lay of the landscape. So YouTube, I know it's not a very sexy topic, but really answer. This is a real answer. I could say do a third of your thumbnail should have your face in it, but that'd be me just straight up telling you something that has worked in the past that might not work right now.
Right.
So right now, it just so happens that having even no words on your thumbnail and providing context as to, let's just say, if you're talking about the best city to live in Texas, as an example, if that was your title, then having a silhouette of the city name on your thumbnail along with your face, just with a surprise look, very close, the camera looking very close to you, that is really what's popping off right now. And this is a point in time. It's almost like just a picture of what's happening right now. But to answer your question, a lot of it has to do with digging into your analytics. So it's a very fluid answer. The way that I make my thumbnails is by me not doing them themselves. My superpower is efficiency. So I plan my content weeks ahead into months ahead in some cases, where I know the video that's going to come out tomorrow, the day after that, because I've already planned for it 2 weeks back, because I have my designer, I have my editor, I have my copywriter, I have my team that's bringing me up to the point where I get in front of the camera and record, and then some other individuals within my team take over from there. So I treat myself as a celebrity, even though nobody else does. But I say that because if you break it down into what happens with the Brad Pitts, I'm sure there's a lot of other celebrities out there that I quickly draw a blank on. If you treat yourself in that light, they don't know, or they don't have to know the lighting. They don't have to know the audio. They don't have to learn X, Y, and Z. Initially, maybe they did. Initially, just to have an understanding if they're producing their own video. But at some point, you want to see yourself as a star, because you are. But yeah, you do have to be the lighting technician. You do have to be the sound guy or gal. You have to be the everything initially. But at some point, you break off into your own business and become you literally are the business. Is that personal brand that we were talking about earlier?
Jaime, if you get to be Brad Pitt, then I get to be Jennifer Aniston. Okay.
Hey. Yeah.
So it's funny, as you were talking, I was starting to get a little sweaty. Like my viewers and listeners know that I am not a tech person. Okay. So that's actually a big part of why we do this show, because I'm learning along with the viewers and the listeners. I'm in the same boat as most people. Like, it stresses me out. The idea of learning how to do a reel, the idea of learning how to set up a YouTube page. I have people who are telling me about lenses. It's like complete mind boggling to me. So I am not the person who's like, yeah, I'm going to get my camera out, because I already own one, which I do not own a camera. This is it for me. Like, people just have these things. They get the camera out, they get the lights out, they know exactly what they're doing, they understand the shot, then they take it to their computer and they're editing. I don't know how to do any of this. So it is overwhelming to me just to hear you even say, I have videos planned out 1 month or a couple weeks in advance. I mean, kudos to you, because I'm on the fly right now. And I think that goes to show people, I hope at least, that you got to start somewhere, right? You cannot compare your very first video to Jaime's 3,000th video, right? Like, we're all starting somewhere. Don't compare yourself to someone who's figured it out. But the reason why I wanted to have you on was really to talk from an expert point of view. It's interesting you brought up the team, because at first, and still to this day, I try to do a lot of it on my own, probably mostly because of my insecurity around giving the content to somebody else. I don't want someone else to see my video where I'm like swearing at the end because I have to stop it and start it again and then give them that piece and have them edit it, right? Like, I'd rather just do the full thing, do it perfectly, and then post it. And it's kind of like, I posted it, now I'm in the comfort of my own living room and I don't have to look at anybody. And then I'll deal with the repercussions tomorrow. And so, but at the same time, as I've just said, I don't have the strength of being able to edit on myself. When did you bring in the team? Did you have like the expertise beforehand, or were you like, no, I'm bringing in the team like right away? And how did you find these people to help you?
Yeah. So great question. So I did not bring on somebody else. Everything was myself. I recorded, I edited, I did thumbnail design. Everything was pretty horrible. So I'll speak from the solopreneur, and I'll speak more from a business owner perspective. So from the solopreneur, specifically for video, that was I would say about a year. And how I learned all this was through YouTube University. So just going on YouTube, there's a lot of people that are very generous in the education content where they figured something out and they paved the road behind you. So you don't have to go at this alone. So there's comfort in that. As a solopreneur, yes, I did have to learn editing. I did have to learn design. I did have to learn sound or anything else. Similar to you, the only knowledge that I have is I know that this camera has to have this power source, and I know that this cord has to be connected to that. And I know that
you got the one more cord than I do, so that's good.
There you go. And the only reason I found how these connections even happened is because of YouTube. So my business partner, Javier, that I mentioned earlier, he knows the lenses. He knows this, that, and the other. Another business partner that I do my podcast with, Joseph Gonzalez, he knows all this stuff. I don't. So they help me out as well. And like, hey, you have a $5,000 camera, act like it. So this whole setting and everything else, it was a Zoom call that they were gracious enough with their time in helping me set things up. So from the solopreneur, getting everything started, it took about a year before I made the switch into daily content. So I've been doing daily content since September 2009. So about a year afterwards, because for me, and it's a very caveman way of thinking, but is even to this day, this is the exact same way that I think. I realized, and here's a limiting belief being projected, but I realized that I'm not going to beat people with quality. In terms of, I had a lot of insecurities. Maybe people are not going to like what I have to say. Why would anybody care? So there's a lot of insecurities. So in my caveman brain was, well, I'm going to beat it with quantity. So one of these videos has to take off, and I'm still waiting for that viral moment. The most viewed content on my channel is about 30-something thousand. So there's no viral hit. I have about 800 to 900 videos on this one channel and several hundred more on other channels. But I approached it from that, again, very caveman way of thinking it, but that's how I did it. As far as the decision to bring on a team and operate more as a business owner, is I had the luxury of monetizing my channel on about month 8 or so. And I thought that, wow, this is the greatest hack on the face of the earth. I'm being paid to prospect. That is insane. So what I need to do is I need to hire somebody that's going to make me not necessarily better on camera. I need to hire somebody that's going to allow me to make more videos quicker. And the biggest thing for me was I do not know how to design very well. So I need to outsource that, which is about $5. You can go to Upwork, you can go to Fiverr or freelancer.com. These are freelancer websites that you can go and get somebody as part of your team relatively easy on a as needed basis. So that's a huge magnifier for your time. An editor is also somebody that I added both my designer and my editor on at the same time. Now they're all full time, but I added them as an on needed basis or as needed basis. So those were the two things that I outsourced as quickly as I could, because even if I went to school and tried to become an editor like the professionals out there, that wasn't going to happen. Same thing with design. So I outsourced those weaknesses and the biggest bottlenecks in my business, because again, for me, it was a volume game. Not to say that my content's garbage, but is that limiting belief that my content was garbage, where I thought I wasn't competing from a quality perspective, I was competing from a quantity perspective.
I hear that all the time. I think that's so powerful what you said, in that you said, okay, let me focus on my strengths and what can I control. If I don't think the content's particularly good, or I'm concerned about whether or not people will care what I have to say, again, that's in your own mind, but you went down the quantity route, and obviously it's paying off. But I think it's also important to note that you've been doing this since 2018. People, again, like, you think it's going to happen overnight. People are putting years and years into this. They're committing a big chunk of their lives and a lot of money toward this. And so even if you're starting today, just understand that if you got to take the long-term approach, and I love what you said, you're getting paid to prospect. That's like the best thing I've heard. You spoke about analytics. I don't know anything about analytics. Tell me about, like, if I went to my analytics page on the couple YouTube pages that we have for ourselves and for the clients under FTGU, I wouldn't know what to look for. The team does. Thank God we have, again, the team that knows what to look for. Tell our audience, if they're doing this themselves, what should they be looking for? What are kind of the pieces of data that tell them whether or not they're doing a good job, or where they should focus their efforts on?
Yeah, what a great question. So when it comes to measure again, we all have those limiting beliefs, every single one of us, to measure your content in terms of where there are some opportunities for you to grow within the content, whether that's what you're saying, when you're saying it, how you're saying it, all that, what's within the video. One of the best ways to measure that is your retention rate. So your retention rate, YouTube gives you all this amazing information through the analytics, so you can see how long people are staying on your YouTube video, that specific video, every single one of them. So just to give some benchmarks, if you're in the 30% mark, that's relatively on the low side. Anything below 30, you need to reconsider how you're delivering your content. Doesn't mean that it's bad content. It just means that we need to rethink of how we're communicating. So if you're communicating a very technical aspect of a topic, and you only just verbalized it, kind of like the talking head that we're doing right now, then there's an issue where it requires you doing a screen share or you doing hands-on. You can't really tell somebody how to repair a computer without really showing them. That's the best explanation I could give. So to measure your content, look at the retention rate. That's going to really help you understand, am I making a quality video? Anything above 50% in terms of retention rate, people that start your video, it's going to drop off immediately, well, significantly, until at the end, if it has an average retention of 50% or higher, you're making a good video. So that is from the content itself. If we're talking about thumbnails, so thumbnails, think of them as your billboards. So when you're walking or driving down the street, you see billboards. Which ones catch your eye? Very similar thing on YouTube. So that's the thumbnail, that's the snapshot, that's the opportunity to draw people in as they're scrolling through their phone. Some good, it's called click-through rate. So every time it's shown up, how many times is it, what percentage is being clicked on? What's stopping the scroll and actually getting the click? So anytime that you're above 5% with your click-through rate, you're doing a lot of good things. You're doing a lot of good things. So that's another indicator, click-through rates. And let's see, we talked about retention rate. We talked about the click-through rate. Trying to think of what other measurement would be prudent at this time.
That's all right if you don't have any more, because quite frankly, I feel like I'm already going to go now into the studio office where the media team sits, and I'm just going to start spewing all this extra knowledge that I have. So I appreciate everything that you've given me today, including all the analytics. I want you to leave our viewers and our listeners with maybe one last thought, one last tip, whether it's, to the veteran that's been doing this for 4 years or longer, or perhaps the person who's thinking about just getting started. What's your big tip to leave with them today?
The big tip here is really the big tip here is there's going to be no lead on earth or no person reaching out to you that's going to be easier to convert than a YouTube lead. There's not. I don't even factor of family in. There's some family members that never use you as a real estate agent. But when it comes to YouTube, the more value, the more problems that you can solve for somebody without generally expecting anything in return, that the better that YouTube is going to be. So you are getting paid to prospect. Even if YouTube's not paying you directly, the video that you make today is going to do some heavy lifting a year from now, 10 years from now. So the more videos that you put out there, you're replicating yourself. You are making a sales pitch. Like right now, as we're doing this recording, there's hundreds of Jaimes out there that are, I don't want to say selling, but communicating with real estate agents, with home buyers, with home sellers. But I have the luxury of being here with you in this amazing show.
Jaime, there's really only one you, let's be honest. And you're here with me. Like you said, I so appreciate all the value you dropped. And I think it's, again, important to note that if you go into your content with the thought process of giving without the expectation of receiving anything in return, then you're going to win. Jaime, thank you so much for joining me today. We really appreciate your time. How can people get in touch with you if they need to find you?
Super simple. Just my name, Jaime Resendiz on YouTube. That's all I ask.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And while you guys are on YouTube, feel free to hit the subscribe button. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.